bien, clase. We'll start on page 130 of your lab manual.
Foreign language students have often used technology in their work, but it's usually been rather primitive technology like cassette tape recorders used to practice speech comprehension or pronunciation. But computers, of course, have changed all of that. Take a look at this little piece of technology, a computer I carry in my pocket. It can not only translate 65,000 words and phrases into 5 different languages, it can also speak them.
Long. Lingua. Clase. Idioma.
Today we'll see how computers are being used in the classroom and the boardroom to communicate with the world as we take a look at foreign language software on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by DataStorm Technologies, setting the standard in PC communications through the development of award-winning software such as Procom Plus, combining power, ease of use, and affordability to become the best-selling communication software in the world. And by PC Connection and Mac Connection, mail-order software and hardware peripherals for the PC and the Macintosh. And by Byte Magazine and BIX, the Byte Information Exchange.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee. This is a new program from Broderbund called KidPix, a kind of creativity paint program for children. It has all kinds of wonderful features on it, but the feature I like is if you go up here to Goodies, pull down the menu, it says Switch to Spanish. And as you can see, lo and behold, the whole user interface is now in Spanish. And the fact of the matter is, if you go into the numbers and alphabet part of the program, it will also talk to you in Spanish. It's no secret we're living in a multilingual society. The global village is a reality. And I want to talk to Dr. Martin Rice, who's going to join us, professor of Slavic languages at the University of Tennessee. You'll be with us a little bit later showing us some software, Martin. But it seems to me the ideal for a computer user is to have a computer. I type a language in English. I then pull down a menu. It says, what language do you want an output in? I say French, Russian, German, and boom, it's done. Is that possible? There are people claiming you can do this kind of thing.
Well, we're a lot closer to it today than I thought we'd be even 2 years ago. But if it were an important letter, I certainly wouldn't send it out yet without having someone who knew the target language look at it carefully.
Why is that? What is the problem technologically?
There are tremendous problems. For example, let's say the letter had the word mine in it.
M-I-N-E.
Right, and you wanted to translate that. Well, the program would have to know, is that a possessive pronoun adjective? Is it a noun, for example? That takes a lot of processing time and a lot of program for a PC.
Yeah, it's still hard to do.
Extremely.
Well, today we'll look at several different approaches to using computers for language translation and instruction. And we're going to start by visiting the Voice of America in Washington. They broadcast in 45 languages, and they use computers to help them.
Началось в воскресенье, когда взрывом бомбы было убито 3 израильских военнослужащих.
The Voice of America broadcasts nearly 1,200 hours of news and information each week to virtually every part of the world. Their 45 different language services take news in English from wire services or other news sources, edit it, and then translate it. The entire VOA operation runs on a Xerox network using the Global View software, which can be set up in any one of the agency's different languages. Some of the computer keyboards here look like standard issue PC keyboards, but others have to be customized for a specific language. For example, the Chinese language creates a special problem. The newsmen here who write in Chinese need to use more than 4,000 different Chinese characters, and obviously no keyboard can handle that many keys. So the writers type the words phonetically in Mandarin, and the computer automatically creates the correct Chinese characters. The problem is further complicated by the fact that some sounds are represented by more than one character. When that happens, the computer displays the options, and the newsman then selects the right one. The use of computers in the Chinese language service not only made the work easier for the VOA news people, but it also allowed them to put out more news.
In Chinese, as in any language where you have a strong calligraphic tradition, a neat handwriting is a sign of a lack of character, and you can imagine what these poor announcers had to go through. When we started using the computer to produce the text, we discovered that we could actually get about 20 to 30% more news in our 10-minute newscast.
But perhaps more important than more quantity in the VOA's news service was the improvement in quality made possible by the computers.
If you take professionals who have been required to handwrite their primary work product, and you now give them a tool that allows them to dispense with that mechanical process, or at least greatly simplify it, obviously they have a little more time to think about what they're doing. They're not so pressed with the mechanical details.
But while computers here have solved a lot of the problems of running a worldwide broadcast operation in 45 different languages, the VOA still does not trust the computers to do the actual translation.
We have a broadcast at the top of every hour, and going through the steps that are necessary to clean up a machine translation really doesn't make sense in daily journalism.
For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Maria Gabriel.
Would you like to be able to speak Italian, German, Spanish, Latin? Well, your computer can help you. Here to show us how is Michael Takalowski, president of Microtac Software, and Michael Quinlan, president of Transparent Language. Michael, let me start with you. We did a program about 2 years ago on foreign language software, and quite honestly, we had a bunch of these programs and they seemed to translate a couple sentences here and there, and afterward, I showed those translations to native speakers of those languages, and they said, this stuff is terrible. And is it 2 years later? I mean, has this stuff gotten better in the last few years?
Well, decades ago, people decided that in just a few years, powerful computers would be able to do human quality translations. It was just around the corner. It's still just around the corner. The difference is a lot of that work has come down to the consumer, so that instead of having imperfect $200,000 translation systems, we have imperfect, perhaps even better than those, $79 translation systems. And in the area of language learning, we're moving a little bit beyond the sort of drill and test vocabulary approach into something more like a simulation.
Michael, the idea of machine translation is not a new one, though, really, is it? Using computers for that?
No, actually, it's about as old as the computer itself. It was one of the first applications when they tried to translate Russian back into English, and everyone was very excited about it.
This for military defense purposes?
Sure, back in the height of the Cold War. Unfortunately, what everybody wanted, and what everybody still wants, is you push the button and out comes your perfect translation. Well, this will cause problems even in human understanding. If you say this sentence is difficult, it's going to mean something different to a grammar student than to Michael Milken.
I guess so. All right, now you have an interesting approach in your program. You've got Italian Assistant, one of your series of programs up here. Show us how this works.
Okay. Italian Assistant, like the rest of our programs, Spanish, French, and German Assistant, run off the idea that the user is an English speaker and understands English, and therefore can interact with the program to resolve those ambiguities that we talked about. So the program can take care of some of the mechanics that you've perhaps learned in school and forgotten. Sure. The program consists of a couple of modules: the editor, which works on ASCII files; a word scan, which allows you to scan through the document and find the words that aren't in the dictionaries, which you can then add very easily to the dictionaries. So a couple of options that you'd probably want to set before you begin to translate. For example, the author gender. If the author is a woman, that would be different if you translated the sentence, I am angry, than say if you were a man.
So it'll automatically pick the right gender for the speaker.
Exactly. Same thing with a business letter would be different than writing a letter to your grandmother or to a friend, who would be the familiar tense. You would choose which of the address you wanted for the verbs and a couple of the other things. So let's go ahead and start with simple letter. This is a letter from Luigi to Lucia talking about the program that he just bought that translates from English into Italian. So this is our editor, and we'll move right into the translation part. When we go to translate, the first sentence comes up. It says, Dear Lucia. We want to know, well, is this dear as in what kind of letter, or dear as in, oh, this is a very dear piece of jewelry?
So if the program isn't sure, it asks you for
exactly.
advice.
The technical word for this is disambiguation.
Okay.
So we're going to choose caro. It knows that Lucia is a woman, so it makes the adjective for dear correct for that. Similarly, when it gets to the next sentence and it says, I'm playing, it says, well, am I playing a guitar? That would be a musical instrument. That's different than I played Don Quixote in the high school drama festival. In this case, we're treating it more like we were playing a game. So we'll choose the correct form for play. It'll then conjugate the verb based on the subject, get the adjectives and articles correct in gender and number, work some with word order, with phrasing, and a whole lot of the grammatical things that's the work that the machine can take care of. Let's speed this up a little bit and say, okay, let's assume that the computer will always choose the translation for what we've got, since this is a simple file.
Right.
So we'll go into the automatic translation. It'll go ahead and translate these one at a time and go through. From here, we can output the translation and take a look at the document. If we've got the translated document, which now looks just like in the same format as an English document, but it's in Italian with all those grammatical things that we talked about. In addition to the being able to translate on a sentence-by-sentence basis, we have memory-resident reference tools that can be used certainly in conjunction with our program or with programs such as WordPerfect or any other text-based word processor. So now you can go look up an English word, just like you were going to look up a word in a dictionary, but you type in the word and immediately get the translation. Very, very fast. In this case, fast is the word. Do we mean speedy, or are we talking about colors being fast, or Italians have a word for clocks being fast, or the verb form would be not eating, fasting. Similarly, we can conjugate verbs. This will save people from carrying around those heavy verb conjugation books and remembering all the irregular way to conjugate verbs. We've got grammar tense helps connected to all of these so that you can look up the help for any of the particular tenses that you're looking at. And finally, we've got a method for entering accents as well, so make entering accented characters very, very easy.
All right, Michael, I'm going to ask you to slide the keyboard over to the other Michael here. And Michael Quinlan, your program doesn't really do translation in the same way, does it? Explain the difference in transparent language.
No, ours is performed by a linguist, so it's perfect when you get it. And the idea of transparent language is that you can read fluently in a language that you don't know, and that's how you learn a language, by using it. This is a French story, Un Million by Guy de Maupassant, presented in transparent language by Professor Joel Goldfield. And the original story is there in the top half of the screen. You can move through it as you would any document. The difference is that wherever you stop, down below is everything that you need to understand it, to say, oh, I get it, and keep reading. So for instance, if we stop here on the word devenir, we look down below and see that the word means became. If the word had many meanings, you would always see the correct meaning of the word in context in that box. Below that is the full sentence translation, because when you're learning a language, you often get toward the end of a sentence, you realize you know the individual words, you don't have any idea what's trying to be said. In the lower left is an explanation of the grammar, and the right in this case is the infinitive, devenir. So wherever you are, you have what you need to understand in a glance, and keep going.
So this is perfect translation, if you will, because it's been pre-translated.
Right, not only perfect, but fully annotated as well. Now, another thing that might keep you from understanding what you're reading would be an idiomatic phrase, such as in English, to kick the bucket. I'll show you one in German. Here's a phrase here. This is eine größere Anschaffung, put into transparent language by Professor Roger Brown. Here's the phrase, die Katze im Sack zu kaufen. And we see in the left top box there that word by word it means the cat in the bag to buy. But also on the right that the phrase as a whole means to buy something sight unseen. And in the sentence as a whole down below it comes out as to buy a pig in a poke. So you understand every aspect of wherever you are. Beginners can move along word by word with the right arrow key or the space bar. You can also use all the navigation keys like page up, page down, or you can use the mouse to click on the navigation bar, or simply to click on words and places in the text that you don't understand. As you move along, you see words and structures that you already know in context over and over again. Something that you don't know, you look down, glance at the help, keep reading, and over time you know that as well. Now, there are a lot of other things you can do with the program. For instance, this is a two-part verb in German. It's reflexive, and you can use our root search function to look through all the verbs of this type throughout the story. And this shows also, again, that if you get to use a language a lot, that you run into all the aspects of the language over and over again, all the time, and they become familiar and obvious to you, and that's how you learn them.
Now, we just have a little bit of time left. You actually do Latin in your program, which is quite a challenge.
Right, I'll show you. That's a very difficult language, and it doesn't really matter how difficult it is, because once again, we get to see it through the eyes of a top linguist, in this case, Dr. Alan Willey at Phillips Exeter Academy. So it's very easy to see, for instance, that here Clausus means in prison, that it's dead Daedalus way back in the beginning was the one that's imprisoned, and that Daedalus Clestis Arat is the major part of the story. And also, when you buy our program, it works for all 4 languages.
So it works in all the languages, and you just buy separate book modules, if you will, to work.
Right, a
inside
number of the
program.
stories come with the program. It's
Yeah.
$95, and if you finish the stories that come with it, you can buy additional stories in a single language or all the languages or whatever.
The stuff has definitely gotten better in 2 years, gentlemen. All right, at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California, they're in the business of teaching professionals how to speak a foreign language, so finding your hotel or asking how much it costs won't quite do. And they not only use computers, but all of the latest technology.
The instructors here at DLI's Foreign Language Center are all native speakers of the language they teach, but they depend heavily on computers and other technology to get the job done. The students here are all from the intelligence community, CIA and DEA. 24 languages are taught here, and every student, military or otherwise, is on his or her way to an assignment in a foreign country. The language teachers here use HyperCard as a front end on the Macintosh and Toolbook as the development tool on the PC. The computer programs are used to complement the classroom instruction. The Macs are used for speech and ear training, since the sound capability on the new Macs lets you use the computer as a digital tape recorder and compare your pronunciation to the correct pronunciation already in the computer as an audio file. The PCs are used in conjunction with video disc players, all run under Hewlett-Packard's new Wave interface for Windows. The computer here acts as an intermediary between the video disc material and the student.
What we've done is used a video disc that was produced by the BBC called Russian Language and People, and we take words and phrases and portions of that video, play it to the student, and then wrap exercises around it.
One of the problems here at the Defense Language Institute is that all the students are on a fast track. They have to attain a certain minimum level of language efficiency in a short period of time. So while the computers haven't replaced human teachers, they have become a necessary part of the accelerated curriculum.
We say that computers will never replace teachers, but teachers who don't use computers could find themselves falling by the wayside. You can sit a student down with a cassette tape and earphones, and that may have seemed like state-of-the-art, but you never know the quality of study that the person is doing. But with computers, with immediate feedback, the student knows right away how well they're doing.
The Foreign Language Center here in Monterey is one of the largest language training centers in the world, and it is also one of the most highly respected, due in large part to their innovative merge of human teachers and the latest in computer technology. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Maria Gabriel.
Thanks to HyperCard and the ability to handle foreign characters and sounds, the Macintosh has always been a popular language platform. Here to show us 2 programs for the Mac are Dennis Ferland of the Spoken Language Instruction Corporation, and also back with us Dr. Martin Rice, who is also chairman of the board of HyperGlot. Dennis, let me ask you, one of the observations about learning language is that a 3-year-old does it very well, and a 33-year-old has a heck of a time with it. Is there anything in the study of language learning from that observation that you've used in developing software?
Yes. The first thing that comes to mind is context, lots and lots of context, and not necessarily just more print on top of print, but pictures and speech and scenarios, and then of course text as well, because ultimately that's what you want to learn, and particularly in the focus of my product. So everything that we do has pictures, and everything that we do has sound.
Well, we can say that right here. I've got a microphone and a picture on the screen. We haven't seen those yet here.
Right.
So tell us about your program then, Dennis.
The theory is we have a database of pictures, and we have a real competent speech circuit manufactured by a company in Chicago. And the 2 things you want to avoid in teaching vocabulary, which is the goal of this, is to avoid frustration. People have a low tolerance for that. Even though they may be learning a lot, if they're frustrated, they won't come back and learn more. And the other thing is boredom. If a student can't feel they're really learning, if they can't sense the rate at which they're learning something new, they won't do it either. And so our experience suggests, we've put this through a couple of college classes now, and it looks like the average student will learn about 30 to 60 words an hour using this program.
All right, show us how it works. This is called Speak to the World, right? And you're teaching Spanish here?
Correct. And the whole idea, of course, is you have some text here and pictures, and you want to connect, and you have a variety of these exercises. I'll take you through a couple of them very, very quickly to give you a flavor for the thing. you have options. You may, in fact, want to not hear the speech at
El
some
ojo.
point. And so it says, what word is that? And if you do it wrong, it'll repeat it. And it says, oh, it really wants to be the eye.
El pelo. La boca. La nariz.
So you can go from the
La
picture to the
cabeza.
words or the words to the pictures.
Correct. And just very quickly to show you that some variety is really important in this exercise, there is another program that uses a little different tack on this, and we actually have an invader game which will break the boredom. If someone is in fact mastering a language, it might be important to have a little fun doing the thing in the process. And so what you'll see are
Puerco.
images. Now they start off slow, but if you're good,
Insecto.
they'll actually start to increase
Oveja.
in speed. All right, and I think that's going to be a sheep.
Pájaro.
Oh,
Vaca.
I see.
Muchacho.
Okay.
You read the word, figure out what the character is that the word describes,
Correct.
click on it, and
Conejo. Vaca.
All right, and then
sort of a multilingual
Hombre.
Tetris here. Or
exactly, and then the last exercise
Caballo.
has to do with ear training, and that is simply there's a variety of others in here, including a typing tutor and so forth. But you want to hear the word, you click
Es
here,
un hombre.
and if you want to hear some of my terrible Spanish, I will try to record my voice. Es un hombre, and then it'll compare the
Es un
two.
hombre. Es un hombre. Es un hombre.
Not too bad.
Es un hombre.
Well, for
So
French
one version
speaking-
is what you just recorded. The other version is what's in the computer.
Correct. And so what you have is a database of test items with something like 12 different exercises to go through those items. And when you get bored or frustrated, go on to the next item. Usually by the time you finish the series of exercises, you'll score very well in a dictation exercise at the college level, for example.
Dennis, I want to ask you to move the keyboard and the mouse
Sure.
over to Martin for a second. And we've focused so far on French, German, Italian, Spanish, the usual European languages that used to be the focus of language training to the degree there's language training in this country. But there's a lot of interest now, Russian, Japanese, Chinese, those languages. You've been dealing with that part of it, haven't you?
Yeah, we do. We have Russian, Chinese, Japanese, in addition to the European languages.
Yeah, what are you
Right.
going to show us here, Martin?
Well, I'll show you something called Kanji Master, which was an Encryptal award-winning program last year that is supposed to teach the kanji, which are really difficult to
Sure are.
to learn. This presupposes that you might not know any kanji whatsoever. And the problem with kanji is that when you have one, you have no way of knowing how it's pronounced to begin with.
Just to explain, kanji are the Japanese character set we're
Right,
talking
kanji
about. Yeah.
is one of the Japanese writing
Right.
systems, right? And you can't tell how it's pronounced by looking at it. So you can listen to it. You can also see it in kana up here, which is the other writing
Right.
system, and English. Some of them, of course, are more complex. And another problem is that when you make a kanji character, you have to draw it in the right order. And so this also will help you get used to the stroke order. And you can click here, and you see the little numbers, what order they have to go in. And then you can practice yourself by tracing it and clicking it, and you see it fills in if you go in the right order. If you go in the wrong order, it won't fill in. Right, so you can learn the stroke orders as well.
Why is that so important in Japanese to do the strokes in the right order?
Well, my understanding, and Japanese is not my field,
Okay.
is that a lot of it has to do with aesthetics. The characters just
Right.
don't look right if they're not in the right
Okay.
order. But this has a lot of other modules too. After you learn the kanji, then you can practice the pronunciation. You can do vocabulary tests, for example, and try to recognize the kanji, see if you know it. You can test yourself. Like we'll give ourselves 3 seconds here, and we'll hear it, for example. And what happens now is you see the character, we have 3 seconds to click on it. I clicked too late, I was wrong, right? If you're right, it'll tell you, and like that. So there are, in addition to that, you can do a lot of other things with it. For example, you can do the same thing in Japanese. By the way, this shows me all the ones I missed, and I can print them out, and I can create a subset of these and practice on just what I missed.
Yeah.
So.
What else does Hyperglot have besides the kanji master?
Well, we have, for example, here we have a Chinese writing tutor. This is a different approach. We have a lot of the same problems with Chinese, of course, too. This takes approach by looking at radicals. These are various radicals, and they are the bases, for example, for a lot of other characters. So if you were to take, let's say, the radical for head, Here it is, and it gives you both the traditional and the simplified forms.
Yeah.
You can hear her say it. And now here are a series of characters that all use that radical head in their construction. You have the character. Here, too, you don't know what it sounds like, so we have this transcription here that shows you the tones, right? That's the pinyin, and then what part of speech it is, and then the meaning, and you can hear them all like that and see which ones were made up. Also, a lot of notes talking about this particular radical and its place in forming words.
How do you see these products being used? Is this in the classroom instruction situation, an individual one-on-one with the computer trying to learn these things?
It's both. A lot of individuals who are studying the language or have studied it and want to brush up or know a little bit of kanji, let's say, and want to learn more, will buy it and use it at home. But a lot of universities and high schools use it too, and they put it in their labs, in their computer labs. And then the teacher will either integrate it into the curriculum or use it as a supplementary, materials.
And quickly, your Spanish program, what level would that be in?
The goal here, and by the way, this is done in True Basic as opposed to HyperCard, this particular product. College freshman level courses. Spanish is finished and French will be out soon, but that really is the goal to work with in a classroom environment.
Gentlemen, fascinating. Thank you very much. That is our look at foreign language software. Stay tuned now for this week's computer news on Random Access.
In the Random Access file this week, Apple has announced further price cuts on the Macintosh. The low-end Mac Classic with 4 megs of RAM and a 40 meg hard drive drops to $14.99. The price on the Mac 2 Ci was cut 37% to $32.99. Dell Computers is also cutting prices again. Its 320N notebook with 4 megs of RAM and a 40 meg drive is now listed at $24.99. That's a $500 reduction. Adobe is offering 70% discounts to schools, students, and teachers. Discounted products include Illustrator, Photoshop, and Type-A-Line. In software sales last week, PC Connection reports that Stacker was the best seller, followed by TurboTax. Not too many other changes in this week's top 10. NEC is introducing a new color notebook computer using an active matrix LCD display. And Toshiba is introducing its first 486 laptop. It's available in 25 and 33 megahertz versions. Finally, congratulations to Marcus, Sumer, and Chris at MIT. Their robot, Dizzy Devil, won the 6th annual MIT Lego Robot Design Competition. It outscored 149 other student-designed robots in a game of robot soccer. And that's it for this week's Computer Chronicles. I'm Maria Gabriel.
Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by Datastorm Technologies, setting the standard in PC communications through the development of award-winning software such as Procom Plus, combining power, ease of use, and affordability to become the best-selling communication software in the world. And by PC Connection and Mac Connection, mail-order software and hardware peripherals for the PC and the Macintosh. And by Byte Magazine and Bix, the Byte Information Exchange.
Videocassette copies of this program are available. Computer Chronicles also publishes a companion newsletter containing details on products demonstrated, plus background information on program topics. To order a videocassette or a subscription to the newsletter, call 1-800-366-9484 or write Computer Chronicles. Please specify program subject for tapes.